need paper?
I have paper. I walked all the way up the stairs to get my own so I could steal it from anybody, and I definitely deserve accolades for that, so killing it right there. Ew, still papers. I think someone spilled some baklava on this table.
Baklava?
Just say it like that.
Distracted, alright. Everyone get here? Sweet.
Observation 1 is the resolution of the United States federal government should significantly increase its use of economic sanctions to support the creation of one or more of the following: the sovereign state of Palestine state, the sovereign Kurdish state, the sovereign Catalonian state. The A part is we're going for a Palestinian state. The observation 2 is the framework we should be debating this. A is a policy ground specifically because how we're able to use net benefits, and benefits is an inevitable question because of how it is able to specifically come to the specific type of enzyme in the brain, specifically myopia, which means we're already using net benefits, which have to weigh the impacts. Also, impact premium is always going to be key to question how we're able to win there. What impacts are able to come first, which means you're going to be using magnitude, time frame, and probabilities or heights mechanisms for around the background point. The background point 1 is that Palestine is not recognized by the sovereign state as by Israel, the United States, Switzerland, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, or most of the EU nations. The plan text is that the United States federal government should place sanctions on all military sales and trades with Israel to support the creation of a sovereign Palestine state. The United States federal government should place sanctions on all military sales and trades with Israel to support the creation of a sovereign Palestine state. Solvency. The solvency point 1 is that solving for Israel-Palestine aggression. Really, the points of the Gaza Strip has been a violent since 2007 when Hamas was able to take over the points of Israel will stop the United States specifically because of 3 reasons. The little irony is 28% of the Israel exports are controlled by the United States. The second little lie is that 8% of their, or 30% of their GDP is controlled by the United States. Well, the third little lie is that the perceptual question of how the United States is the biggest influencer ultimately is right now, which means that we were able to split over we're just supporting for Palestine is always to be seen as a perceptual shift away from Palestine, but also they're going to see it as an indicator they're doing the wrong thing. The C points that the United States and Israel dependence. The 8 points that they have around $3 million of aid for coming from the United States every single year. The second little item is that international support is ultimately key because there's a question how they only get that. The UN specifically protections against specifically against resolutions at UN that are passed specifically within the United States, which means they're only protected the third points out of the loan guarantees. So right now we're the ones who are securing their loan guarantees in order to support their economies. Right now, because the way the Gaza Strip is affecting their economy, it means that we're functionally controlling the entirety of their economy. The advantage 1 is nuclear war. The uniqueness point. The uniqueness point 1 is that we've been fighting since 2005 specifically, but we've been seeing an increase since 2007 when Hamas was able to take over the system. Specifically, the little point A is that of the 1.5 million people are living in the Gaza Strip as right now. The little point B is that they've been blockading. Israel's been blockading since 2007 when Hamas was able to take over. The point is that of several of the Israeli offensive happened in 2018. We saw 400 rockets launched off and 100 plane missiles, bombs, and alone, which affected over 50,000 individuals. The second point is that Israel is controlling the coast of the exit and entry points at all the points. There's no airport usage, but also there's no products they're able to get, which means there's an exclusion of food, and specifically no medical care is able to go to individuals. The third point is that North Korea is supporting the Palestinians right now. The point is supported with Gaza and the Greenland area since specifically 1998, but the United States have been working against the B points that they will condemn Israel's actions specifically in 2018 as a result of the way that they've been saying that they're going to continue their violence, they're going to step in and help the Palestinians. And links 1 is that the links 1 is that the United States is ultimately going to be modeling the United Nations and acknowledging the Palestinian state. The points that including Israel is a part of the United Nations, but also may be modeled by the United States. The points that the U.S. influence in the United Nations is extremely high. The little irony is that 25% of the UN money is ultimately controlled by the United States. The little second little lie is that the 30% of the peacekeepers are controlled by the United States as well. The same points that there's no choice ultimately. The points that the fast system are able to check back ready missile strike against the United States. The B points that the seventh plane ultimately are able to control the Indo-Pacific, which is the most influential part of the world, because of the block trade and the 8% of the world's trade, but also see what is the Quad agreements means we're able to control the majority of agreements that are able to happen around the world, specifically from the major democracies that are happening at the second point under the links is under the perceptual relations are able to use the United States and North Korea and improving into Palestine. And ultimately that means we're able to see that we are able to create more of a peaceful situation in the region, less than the war scenario which we're acting as a proxy. The third point is that the sanctions are key to hegemony in the United States in the region specifically because of question how that has been decreasing, and not only because of pull up, but specifically because of question we have not been promoting peace. Internal links. The internal link 1 is that the United States is key to multilateralism and key to preventing war. The point is that hegemony and peace theory says that there's one clear hegemon we're able to prevent any type of war from happening in the future, specifically great actor wars, but also the point is that the prevention of the war in the future ultimately means we're able to securitize billions of lives. The sequence that the United States increasing hegemony is able to stop indiscriminate attacks on the Palestinian people coming from Israel. The second point of the internal links is that sanctions is the key to stability in the region. We see that 1.5 million people are at risk of dying as of right now immediately as the way the war is going as of right now. The third point is that acknowledging the key to acknowledgement is keep stopping the aggression. The point is that condemning Israel while in favor of the North Korea is important because it's a question of how they're supporting Palestine. The main point is that removing the DPRK and the regular war scenario with Israel Palestinian agency and intelligibility. Uniqueness. Uniqueness is why one says that denying threat to the state of the Palestinians right now is destroying their rights as human beings. The importance of the West Bank is the West Bank individuals have no citizenship as right now. The big poison of the specifically the women with breast cancer who are being denied their visas or receiving no medical care for the cancer that they have is right now. The second poison of Palestinians in Israel are virtually stateless people. The poison of even if you're half Palestinian and half Israeli who have no access back into Israel cities made or major cities to be poisoned. There's no law of return. Actually, the law of return proves that if you're able to leave Israel, then you should be able to come back. But they've actually muted this by saying if you leave, you cannot come back, which is isolated the cities in Israel right now. But also the individuals who want to go back to their families. The third poison of Israel is also seen as an occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Is already the IDF soldiers, specifically Israeli defense soldiers, specifically had checkpoints and different raiding sites, which are actually able to control and also totalitarian control the way individuals are ultimately talking in the streets. Even the fourth poison of Palestinians are subject to collective engagement, which was ruled illegal under the Geneva Convention. The eight poison of blockades are blocking not only weapons, but specifically food and medicine in the majority of ways. The B poison in 2007 to 2010 study that malnutrition was caused by the Israeli blockades. The links. The link of the plan is that the plan acknowledges the rights and agency of the Palestinian people, which is key to the reorientation of their humanity as Palestinians. More than just a violent actors going against the Israel. The second poison of the state recognizes the key to intelligibility and solidarity, international solidarity against the way that Israel is doing these violence right now, which means we've actually really united front on the international series to pressure them specifically to stop doing this violence. The journalist one is that the Palestinian agency's key to human rights. The poison of the denying the 3/4 of applicants their visas because they're not able to receive food or medical treatment is right now. The B poison of 548 women have died of cancer as a result of being denied visas. The C poison that there's 6,000 people with cancers right now who cannot escape. The Gaza Strip, the second poison, the second internal link is that recognizing is key to international modeling. The A poison of the United States is going to be modeling the unit cost applied by analysis here. The impact one is that a dehumanization, the agency of these individuals is able to take it away, which means that death is always going to be inevitable because they do not have that representation of the political sphere, which major physical suffering can never be talked about. The second internal, the second impact is that of death. We see that people with cancer are going to be dying inevitably if we're not able to resolve the question of how tensions are able to exist. We also see that 97% of the water is unhealthy in Gaza Strip as of right now. 20,000 children have anemia, but also 50,000 have food parasites as a way that they literally have no access to clean water or food, which means this is an integral to pass the plan now.
Ready? How many sanctions?
What?
You place sanctions on all. How much are the sanctions?
On all trade and
like,
all military sales.
Right. Sanctions usually have like a number,
This is more like relatable to like an embargo. It's literally just one sanction to cover all.
So we're ending all trade with Israel.
All military and economic trade, yeah.
Okay. So, great. Sovereign Palestinian state, are you defaulting to the 1967? Like,
Yeah,
also?
those border lines, yeah.
Great. Okay. Great. Okay. So on the first advantage, can you explain? Let's start with the impact analysis. Actually, North Korea is the one that fills in.
We're saying North Korea's been supporting Palestine, but they're also on the brink of war because they're saying Palestine is not getting any support. So they said that they would bomb Israel.
Okay, so DPRK fills in. This is not a warrant about like U.S. hegemony important. This is like DPRK will be the one that fills in.
No, this is the reason why U.S. hegemony is key, because if the DPRK is going to get involved, that only makes nuclear war inevitable. So we need U.S. hegemony in order to further hegemonic peace
Sure.
theory.
The DPRK is going to get involved in Israel. Is that
what the uniqueness said? Yeah.
okay? Yeah. Just making sure.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so at the top of the background, you said the UN is the one that likes this, but the US, does the
I didn't
US?
say that UN. I just listed all the countries that refuse to
Was-
recognize Palestine in the background.
Gotcha. Was the US included in one of those?
Yeah, I said the US has not recognized it.
Great. And then on, actually that's fine.
Two off base. And on top of case, there will be a dump. So where do you want to put after that, I'll start from cases presented in the PMC.
So that includes like the background solving.
Yeah. Let's start with the framing on top and just go from there. we're good. Alright.
First is the criticism, the preservance of framing one, anti-blackness of prior question, the explain all activity is colonized by antagonisms of black and non-black. Non-black comes before all institutions, law and economy, including anti-black violence is gratuitous, where the middle passage, for instance, creates a loss of a self that can experience any loss. Secondary use policy beyond is illusory about the preservance of form of white privilege, because those who have access to the system can use it, but those who do not have access are locked out. The second argument is divorced from historical relations, i.e. the way in which fiat understands historical relations, always divorced from the reality of material violence that exists in status quo. The next argument replicates status violence and props of the state as epistemology. We will understand ourselves and others in the sense of epistemology ontology. Sit next to this advantage to walls. We say this always results because of temper and interrogation of intentions. First, when the United States went into a rock under the facade of spreading democracy or killing terrorism, but in fact it was oil intentions results in repulsivity. Next advantage is humanism. We say the idea of equality here is always despite colonization of lazy, non-ordered people. The next argument is roll the ballot. Vote for the team that best resists anti-black violence. Vote for the team that best resists anti-black violence. The explains this came to center white fragility and complicity debate. The explains this is for also good for survival strategies. The fourth argument is anti-blackness constitutes Zionism. The explains Zionism is attempted dispossession and elimination of racialized native population. The basic point policing against Palestinians rooted in anti-blackness. For example, the U.S. trains IDF and almost no IDF punishment in police brutality cases. Links. One, the U.S. action perpetuates post-rich memory by legitimizing the U.S. and hand-washing anti-black violence. One is divorces the responsibility of UN vetoes against this group. Israel also in the context of the U.S. Passing anti-BDS legislation against Israel next. The extremist second argument is creation of state legitimizes white civil society. The conception of sovereignty is anti-black. The argument here subjectivity is tied to the land, which is impossible to access for individuals who are typically African. The subjectivity is tied to land replicates settler colonials as well, because individuals are always interested in the land that they originally associated with. Their arguments, economic sanctions always target the racialized other. U.S. sanctions in Zimbabwe led to targeting of the in Zimbabwe. When are we? Yeah. Fourth argument is the app creates anti-black violence by demarcating Palestinians as the other. The app operates on the logic of separate but equal, which always results in more violence. For example, the Jim Crow South, the apartheid in South Africa, the impacts one anti-blackness, lapse of subjectivity, and replicates self-hatred and nihilism. The second argument is otherization overkill as a result of this anti-black violence that collapses subjectivity. It also turns the affirmative as tried after the all-violence status quo. And after novel, this all means is a root cause thing for how we ought to understand the otherization that occurs through the collapse of subjectivity. The alternative. Reject the whiteness of the affirmative to discursively resist against anti-blackness. Reject the whiteness of the affirmative to discursively resist against anti-blackness. Also, this discursive resistance works. For example, the Marxist feminists rejected the way in which capitalism forced on wage labor into the social and capitalist system. That means the Marxist feminists rejected this ideological conception that they should be paid for their wage, for their house labor. This results in material and ideological changes. Also, the basic point is we can problematize master signifiers by engaging in this kind of understanding of discursive resistance. I.e., the fact that, for example, some politicians say no one is illegal. We say that no one is legal to problematize the conception of citizenship that exists, as no one being a citizen in the state can always commit violence against individuals. Second argument is all allows for building of transnational solidarity against anti-blackness. For example, first it's key to fluid resistance against the structure of anti-blackness. It's also key for structural understanding and also coalition building. For example, Ferguson and Gaza united against the standpoint of anti-blackness. Third argument is the alternative creates a liminal space to delimit possibilities of being where value to life can be claimed. In some sense, we can solve the affirmative goal, which we can allow Palestinians and give them some agency. We fight back against oppressive structures of anti-blackness. Also, if that reputation fails, because it's always a means of co-option by the state in order to footnote or movement that results in no solvency for the affirmative. Also, is every one of their severance, their reason to reject the team on face because they're suffering from the representations that exist in the realms. This end? Versus uniqueness, the first argument is Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territories are the only barrier to the Christian Palestinian state. The 60,000 Jewish settlers now reside in Palestine land, three times many as Oslo peace process in 1993. The second argument is apparently two-state solutions failed. India and Pakistan separation resulted in many civil wars over Kashmir, which is disputed territory. The third argument is the sovereign Palestine state would be strict to pre-existing agreements. For example, the Oslo Accords require possible sovereign Palestine to remain demilitarized after its creation. Israel will keep encroaching because that's what they do. They want to continue establishing settlements in the area. The fourth argument is Israel becomes less tolerant against Palestinians as we speak. The first argument is the Center for Political Economy in Tel Aviv finds that Israelis are more right-wing than their parents. Hate crimes increased by 80% in the last 2 years. The sixth argument, Palestinian sovereignty will fail. The eighth point, Trump and UN have halted all aid to Palestine. The basic point, Palestinian authorities not seen as legitimate because of recent corruption charges. The basic point is the link's first plan passes creates Palestinian sovereignty. The second argument, Palestinian state collapse because it has no international support but also has no military backing in the world, which it does not. The Oslo Accords argument is Israel militarization increases from hate crimes to extermination. The proxy war that Palestine will lose absent aid and military. The impacts first, death, dehumanization. We say Palestine's killed. That's 3 million individuals killed at the affirmative because because the Israel backlash is also to Palestine has nothing to support the sector is great power. Where we say that Iran side will fill, and for Palestine, U.S. bills and British results in the same scenario that the affirmative indicts, so you can cross by the impacts of periodic extinction.
Case arguments?
First, U.S. economic sanctions failed. The Ace Peterson Institute for International Economics says the 200 cases of economic sanctions since World War I determine 85% of sanctions don't achieve the goals. These points, for example, the Kuwait, the sanctions on Saddam Hussein did not result in the removal from Kuwait. Also, the Iranian sanctions failed to resolve nuclear weapons development. Second, sanctions make the economic inequality worse. These points it enables authoritarian control of goods. For example, the individual who is in charge can control what goods can be used and what goods cannot be used. It gives more power to the authoritarian. This third argument can turn to these countries can turn to other economic actors for it. Economic support, for example, China is the number 2 investor in Israel right now. We see China would probably fill in for the United States. It means they give no solvency to the app because they would just provide the funds that they're losing from the United States. Fourth argument is sanctions hurt the poor. The Ace point the U.S. sanctions between 1982 and 2011 it adversely affected the poor, led to a 3.1% increase in the poverty gap since you don't solve advantage to. The next argument is sanctions are effective in racism or historical injustice. That's the root cause that they pay comes before the F.
Okay, framing?
You can cross by the disadvantage to fiat. Right here we say that fiat is bad for a few reasons: historicization, all socio policy theory, and the fact that it privileges individuals. So this means you have to win. Your framework is good for. You actually leverage the impacts of the affirmative against the impacts of the criticism. We go on to the solvency first. We go over to the solvency first. See that first, Israel gets economic aid from elsewhere, so you don't resolve any of the economic benefits. Yes, you might say that the U.S. is important for their economy. China swoops in the world in which they see that as an economic opportunity. The next one you can say is perceptual issue. We say perceptual creates issues for Israel. For example, Netanyahu must backlash because an election is coming up in 30 days and he's already been roiled in corruption scandals, so he has to prove his military might. Means that he cannot just concede to the sanctions from the United States. Instead, he has to prove his military might in order to stay in power. Next is advantage when we go to advantage when we say TPRK is not getting involved in Israel. Now there's no reason why the TPRK would actually have the ability to do this. Also, they're being watched by international actors right now after some of the United States they want to be perceived as peaceful states, so they're not moving to Israel. This means there's no uniqueness for your argument in terms of the way in which North Korea would not support Israel. Next, we go to the links. We say that. You say U.S. escaped modeling of the UN. We say that routinely the United States resolutions are United States resolutions for Israel are rejected by the members on the Security Council. There's no reason why modeling would actually occur because the United States has no clout when it comes to Israel and the Security Council. Next is there's also no modeling because the United States politicians are against against stopping trade. For example, Blue Dog Democrats, Republicans hate the fact that you're thinking from fiscal responsibility, which means that there's no coherence in the United States. There's no coherence abroad as well. Also. Yeah, that's fine. Go into the internal links. We say unilateral was always results in world warfare. Look at historical examples in which the British Empire the British Empire was everywhere, and that resulted in many conflicts happening around the world. So there's no empirical warrants for your hegemony arguments. Also, we say U.S. hegemony high means that there's probably an increase of conflict. Also, hegemony high is back to results in more colonialism. Which links to the crisis because once the U.S. hedge is high military resources to enact military violence, also like through special operation forces and also through other kinds of violence. Advantage 2. The disadvantage is entirely turned to advantage because you don't resolve Palestinian agency development. Palestine is being a certain point in which you pass the plan. Also, we say there's no also solvency depends upon modeling. We already present modeling does not happen. Instead, you mass violence that occurs against them because you produce a facade of solvency. And you have no. You also provide for healthcare or like any access to medical resources. There's no reason why you would resolve any disadvantage.
Can I have a copy of your old? What's the status of the old?
It's unconditional. Here's the.
Can I have a copy of your old ballot?
Yeah, that's on. Both of them are on there.
Alright, cool, thanks. Can we start? Oh yeah, we already started. Okay.
We say that the U.S. moves in to support. We say that your one Saudi Arabia fill in for Palestine, the U.S. fills in for Israel. So that basically like in the Middle East there are lines along like the Arab League and the United States.
What does the world after the old look like?
We would say it allows for revolutionary agency to.
How is that different from revolutionary agencies against anti-blackness now?
Our argument is that the affirmative is a unique instance of tying subjectivity to land, and that is bad for revolutionary action. We say that excludes certain forms of violence and mischaracterizes the violence that currently is occurring against Palestinians in the status quo.
Oh, cool. Thank you. All right. It's going to be the neg in the order of the alternative insolvency, the frameworks and links, then the disadvantage. Then it's going to be their case terms. I put them on a separate sheet. Then it's going to be the app in the order of the solvency argument, advantage 2, and then advantage 1. Oh, it's on the framework of the app, by the way, I put it on the same page as the solvency page for the app. Everybody's ready? Wait, where am I doing? 3. Okay, got it. All right. Also, the alternative, my first response is perfect. The affirmative to do the affirmative to resist anti-blackness, do the affirmative to resist anti-blackness. That we're a point of this is the privilege because we were able to say that we are functionally resisting anti-blackness. We were interested in the Palestinians. The second response will be under this is because the double bind of the alternative is so strong that overcomes the except for the affirmative work so we can solve these tasks. Ultimately, do the solve. This is out of the benefit that of transition mechanism because the way in which Karl Marx, they try to use Karl Marx in their solvency. We talk about how Marx said in German ideology that any type of ideology needs policy in order to operate within the first place. We provide the transition mechanism that's necessary for the affirmative for the negative to operate within the purpose. The next response would be to dissipate the alternative. My first response, or first disadvantage is exclusionary because the way you try to become, you are absolutely essential when you try to assume that every single Palestinian person is black, which means any Palestinian person who's not black is ultimately going to be excluded from your movement. When you try to talk about the way in which you have to track several black people, especially and a blackness theory in the lit base itself, who creates a binary between white and black, because people are stuck between them, people stuck on the border, makes so that they're no longer able to actually operate. Because you try to talk about anybody in Palestine, ultimately black, the ultimate are you essentialist, which is your rhetorical power, the second disadvantage is that's a form of ideological purity. You have to win that trying to save 1.5 million Palestinians is bad. You have to try to win that. That's the way in which Israel is forcing people with malnutrition and the keeping them barely on the brink of life is good. You have to win that our act trying to save people is bad. So you are for ideological purity, extended across the point about the 1.5 million Palestinians being the reason why you are ideological purity to vote down the team. But third disadvantage here is ultimately that the state backlash in which you're trying to talk about how like the Marxist feminist movement have to talk about the way in which the Vanguard Party, which was the Marxist feminist movement that you are not naming, was shot down by the state because the first of all the way in which it put people in the gulags, the second was the way that it was ultimately shut down because the state is inevitable. Across the point you talk about the Marxist feminist movement. Our first response is that Marx even said himself that the ideology ultimately needs policy. He said this in the German ideology. This was in our original framework. You don't respond to this. The second point is that the state is inevitable because the way in which not only our hierarchy is natural, but also creates the way in which the state is able to excuse itself across your point where you talk about the possibility of value life to be able to reclaim. My response is that you are not able to reclaim the value life for Palestinians, and you specifically say that they are not deserving of the way in which they are currently being exempted from food and medical, which means the 6,000 women who currently have breast cancer, they are going to die if you go with the negative team, which means you are not able to break them to value life when they are ultimately dead. And also the premise not severed because we were able to say that the affirmative team is just a policy version of the neg, which means we were able to say that it's not competitive at all, huh?
It's not co-option.
It's not a form of co-option because we were able to say that we are all going for the same idea that we need to be able to have the agency of the Palestinians. We were able to say we are a policy version of the neg.
We can use the bad actor of the United States to do it.
We can use the policies, we can use the bad actor of the United States in order to do something good. There's no reason why we're not able to do this. It also means we're able to make a step of momentum in order to go in the right direction across from the framework. Across your framework, where you talk about how policy, first of all, you talk about how anti-blackness is such a power question. My first response is that you're not able to talk about the way in which there are thousands of years of history between and the way in which the Middle East has operated before the Middle Passage was historically or even wrong on itself because of the way in which there's already been a problem with Zionism, because of the way in which the religious ties of Israel created basically the religious history of Israel is responsible for the way in which it is violent against other Arab nations and other Arab peoples because it views them as Gentiles. It goes away. Next response to the argument is that you were able to solve this sort of question before you talk about policy. If you have about my first response is that Karl Marx talked about the way in which policy is really good. But my second response is that policy is good, first of all, because the way in which it forces us to engage with the state gives us the ability to actually engage with it, and gives us the ability to change it, go to the
Leverage of power.
My next response is that you trying to say that policy is bad because of the way in which you were saying that we have to see our levers of power. We see that taking hold of the levers of power is the only way we can create change. My next response is that you trying to say that policy is bad when there is a lot which is the Puerto Rican reformist policy movement. You trying to say that they don't get policy is also a erasure of the civil rights movement is all together, which is my third response is the policy of the all be ultimately inevitable because of the way in which you just gave to the next round, which is you get anything you need crossing the rule of the ballot. My first response is the counter rule of the ballot. Vote for the team with the best beyond policy option. Vote for the team with the best beyond policy option. First reason for preference is because it's informative. We were able to avoid this dogmatism, which we were able to talk about the way in which controls the board by embracing one single ideology without actually talking about other bodies, and you can pass for the second reason for preference because this is the most real world because the way in which you can't actually stop any of the history that happened in the problem with the status quo is going to. Third reason for preference. What was my third reason for preference? Sorry, I lost page. Sorry. The third reason for preference is because this is a form of realism which we can actually engage in the status quo itself and able to get institutional knowledge. Except my next response is going to be a disadvantage of this because the way in which you are exclusionary to Palestinians who are not according to, who are not black according to the Israelis. And the question point about Zionism, my response is we are able to solve Zionism because we are able to engage in Asian agency on the links. Across from all of the links, you can put that these are simply links of omission. You try to talk about legitimating and religion. Like, you talk about like white civil society in the United States is bad altogether because of hand washing. This is simply a link of omission. You have to say why granting agency is uniquely bad. Why granting agency is uniquely what causes white civil society, which means that we are able. There's no like. How this was my next month. We in turn we were able to solve this response because the United States was able. Across from the first thing, in turn we were able to solve this. Across from the first thing we solved because we were able to decrease the hand washing because the United States takes responsibility for the fact that it is constantly like drawing these lines across the point about legitimating white civil society. My first response is that white civil society is inevitable when you do not break it down. However, my next response is that we are able to solve for the problems created by white civil society. It's a matter of what tool they use. We were able to stop that tool. Which goes to the question point where you talk about like you say sanctions force people to target the other. My first response is that Israel is already targeting Palestine. That's why there's 1.5 million people dying right now because they are already being targeted. Which means that this is a linear disadvantage. The question when you talk about the affirmative team is anti-black, we first of all say it's not anti-black to say people matter. It's not anti-black to say people deserve life. You have to win that Palestinians don't deserve agency, which means you're able to turn this and say that we were able to say that we were able to decrease anti-blackness and you become anti-black when you say the Palestinians do not matter on the disadvantage. Alright. Across the uniqueness point altogether, my first response is that Israel, your entire thing is about Israel people, like they're going to be problem because of Israel. My first response is Israel is not ultimately going to backlash because of the way in which it doesn't have the choice because the United States will be, okay, Israel will not backlash because of the fact that the United States will be backing it into a corner. You can extend across the board when we talk about how the United States used sanctions before in order to guarantee labor rights in Israel, and it absolutely worked. Because we were able to say that this works before. So my second response is we force a ceasefire, which means they're not able to do. It's my third response is that even if they do this, it means that they will ultimately be backlash from the United States, which we can say that Israel doesn't have the incentive to do, which means that this is totally not unique. Then you talk about the fact that you talk about it will collapse because of those support. My response is that turn on the links. You say it will collapse into support. My response is that we increase soft power, which you do not respond to, which means that we say increase support for the Palestinian state. We are winning on the internal link to disadvantage. You have no argument for this. Then if your impact to talk about Palestinians will be killed, they're being killed right now. This is a linear disadvantage, but even more so, they just tried after the affirmative. On the case turn, you talk about how sanctions are not going to work because the sanctions are going to fail. My first response is you can extend across the solvency point where we specifically talk about how we instituted sanctions in order to solve labor standards. That means we were able to say that we were able to solve and work on Israel. It is unique that these warrants are good. These are generic warrants. They don't apply. They don't link. Next, you talk about how there's economic inequality. My response is that this is a squelch. There's economic inequality right now because of the way in which the Palestinian people are being hurt. Next, you talk about how China will fill in. My response is that because of the way in which Israel interrupted in Syria, it means that they will not fill in because Russia will not want them to fill in because Russia and China care more about each other than the others. Next, you talk about sanctions results of racism. Racism exists right now. There's no way you can solve it all together. The only thing you can do is create agency, which we're able to solve as well. On the resolution, you talk about how this is the disadvantage to fiat. My response is you can extend across the Karl Marx board and extend across the fact that people have myopia. Myopia means you can't act in ideology unless you utilize policy, which means you're able to win, which you're able to win this. That's on the sovereignty point. Extend across our second sovereignty point where we talk about how Israel has to listen to us, which we're able to say we're able to solve. This also means that they will not escalate, which means that the Netanyahu will not actually backlash, which means that the sovereignty point falls through. Next, you talk about how your entire case is a disadvantage to you talk about how you were internally to the advantage, disadvantage to advantage two. My first point is you can extend all the internal links and links is why we're able to solve this. Means we are able to go outside of models because the way in which the United States is uniquely because of the forefront of the United Nations. And finally, across from the advantage one, you try to on advantage one. Great.
sorry, could you say that one more time?
Yeah, one second, let me get to the end of it. The case arguments, and then the rest of the affirmative order. So solvency, advantage 1, advantage 2. Yeah, so one more time. The disad, the criticism, and the order of the framing, links, alt, the case arguments, and then the rest of the Great. All right, anyone already?
Too much conceded on the uniqueness of all of the disadvantage means that there's absolutely going to be a backlash. There's going to be the disad is going to act as uniqueness for the case turn made on the affirmative. So the two things that I need here first is that two-state solutions always fail. The war for this, particularly the way that India and Pakistan always resulted in a war after the borders were established. So even if a border is established, that doesn't mean that it is inevitable that a war won't happen. Our argument is that after the creation of border, there's always existing tensions, which always result in war. The next argument that we need here is that Israeli hate crimes are going to be worse in a world after the affirmative, particularly because of the way that the IDF youth particularly perceive Palestinians, which means that a switch moving from the way that current violence of hate crimes exists towards extermination is going to be net worse, and it's going to be outweighed on the question of magnitude and probability. We don't. Next, you can extend the. Sorry, how do you want me to? You can extend the fact that it's a linear disad. That doesn't matter. That means that you resolve all of the offensive link turn, particularly that there's not going to be any increase of soft power, particularly if right after your ad plan you kill a massive amount of Palestinians because you result in the extermination of the state. That means that the uniqueness is going to be mitigating the link turn that you get here. Okay. You've mishandled the way that we read into blackness. We are not willers, so we're not saying that the origin of all violence is the Middle Passage, but rather the Middle Passage and sand sheets, the creation of how a racialized other is created. You've missed all of our socio-political warrants about the way that a racialized other is created. The argument is coming from the fourth point in the framework, particularly about how anti-blackness constitutes Zionism, which means that we delegate all of your office, particularly about how quote-unquote we are not accessible to Palestinians. The argument here is that anti-blackness always co-opts the way that other ideologies function, and operating as a root cause always create a racialized other. It is a no solvency argument for the affirmative. The next is the line by line. First, you say that we create by or that policy is good, particularly because it allows us to engage in this state. You can extend all of the three warrants against my policy fiat is bad. There's no engagement or counter warranting here. The first argument is that I recreate white privilege. The impact of that is always the constant recreation of authorization. The second argument is that you always replicate statist violence, particularly by propping up the state. This checks back on all of your arguments about putting your hands on the levers of power, because if you are Kamala Harris and are always acting like a cop because you enact statist violence, that is not a good enacting on putting the hands on the levers of power. Next, you check back with the Black Panther example about the young lords, particularly we say that this always results in zero policy failure, particularly because the recreation of statist violence is very different from the way the Black Panthers operate. Particularly the Black Panthers conceived of a world that could exist outside of the state. You do not do that, which means that you do not get the Black Panther on their young lords warrant. Next, you say that fiat's inevitable. No warrant for this. Particularly, we isolate that there have been plenty of discursive instances that have been successful. For instance, the Zapatistas, which still exist in Mexico, fighting back against racist violence. Probably reason as to why there is a reason as to why cities or we can exist outside of the state, but two, a reason as to why being able to uphold that world is uniquely better for the world, for a person that is already determined to be a racialized other, meaning that if violence is always non-unique, it is only a question of how we can resist the production of state-produced violence. We see that the criticism is going to be ahead of the after the permutation. Next, you read the category of the elbow for taking with the best fiat policy action. You can extend all of the disad against policy fiat here. All of these impact out to happening much faster, particularly because of all of the warranty analysis about zero policy failure. Also, we can say you can extend the disad of humanism, particularly that you perceive a world where everyone can access equality and fairness equally, which means that you always recreate a conception where black and people of color are always perceived as lazy, particularly because they're not engaging with the state, which means that you always perceive with the person that exists outside of the state or tries to resist against it as the other, which means that you always create violence against the other. Do I need any more responses to this?
Yeah, they say disad excluding like non-black Palestinians. Just put this up here, like. Yeah.
Extend the argument about how anti-black constitutes Zionism. That's a probably reason as to why there's no exclusion of Palestinians, because we are responding to the way that a racialized other is constructed. You say that we're a form of realism again. I think all of these arguments are responded by state-produced violence. Links. You can extend the last three links. The link does not respond to these three. The first one is that you create a sovereign world, which means that you tie subjectivity to the way that land has, particularly per your own arguments. There is a giving back of agency per the giving back of land. This is exactly the type of argument that we say is inaccessible to people who are phenotypically black or African, particularly the argument that there is no return back to subjectivity. The black body is always positioned as against the other because they have lost history. We isolate that you're particularly
that Israel and like them are like really buddy and back together, which means all of their solvency analysis and the reason as to why their solvency exists, the reason as to why you do not reduce any hand washing on the alt. First, that when you're a transaction cost, you have to be willing to the affirmative that you are able to solve to mean that you're not a transaction cost. And this had, or the first is that this had that excellent is going to be a reason as to why we're not a transaction cost. The second reason is that you are also a transaction cost, so it means that you link to this as well. Next, you say that you were exclusion. First of all, no, we're not. I extend all of the framing analysis about how anti-blackness is construction of racialized other, which means that this is accessible to anyone. You don't get your impact there. Next, you say ideological purity. No, we say that the affirmative, extending all of the alternative solvency is a reason as to why Marxist feminists and no one is illegal is absolutely a material thing, which means that we are not exclusively ideological. The second argument here is that per our fiat analysis, we say that you are ideologically pure, particularly because you exclude because we say that fiat is not accessible to people, particularly because it forces us to divorce ourselves from historical violence and recreate post-racial violence, which means that ideological purity turns to you. It's probably to your permutation. The next argument that you say is states general. No, we say that kills revolutionary potential. That's the impact of the, or that's it, that dis to the permutation. That's going to be the second one. The next is going to be that we reduce the value of life. No, that doesn't happen. That means that you've extended 2 dissets against a permutation. You can extend all links as dissets against a permutation. The next one is going to be co-option. You said you are no co-option. No warrant for this analysis. We say particularly that you recreate the anti-black violence and the settler colonialist logic of expanding the frontier, which means that you always replicate racialized violence.
We're not Karl Marx. Doesn't matter. Does not implicate our solvency at all.
We're not Karl Marx, which means that we do not implicate our ideology. Also, we say that all of your reasons as to why policy is able to enact or is going to be good, but yeah, that doesn't matter. We're not Marx.
No.
You can extend the fact that China fills into the gap. What do you want on this?
China fills into the gap because they're looking for economic opportunities. That doesn't piss off Israel. That doesn't piss off Russia because Russia doesn't care about Israel.
Russia doesn't care about Israel. Probably the reason as to why China sees this as an economic measure and fills in. That means the reason as to why the affirmative doesn't have any solvency overview to the rest of the affirmative case. If there's any reason as to why the affirmative doesn't solve, you get a lot of reasons to the alternative, particularly because all of your link turns are non-unique in a world where you make violence worse. The next argument that I need on the affirmative, particularly, is the perception that Netanyahu has. You can see in the analysis that elections happen and within the next 3 months, which is the reason as to why sanctions immediately result in Netanyahu going back towards the way that he hates Palestinians. That means coalescing of the base. That means that any increase of violence against Palestinians means after sovereignty, there's inevitably a war. You can extend all of the dis-out arguments that I've extended all the uniqueness points as to why there will be inevitably be a war. That means that the affirmative has no solvency. You can presume neg on this question. But on the first argument, you've conceded too much analysis about how you also have no solvency, particularly because of the blue dog Democrats. Because that means that the United States is already going to be providing military funding, which is the reason as to why Netanyahu posturing for the elections always results in more violence, which means even after they get agency, they're all killed immediately, which means that we are ahead on this time frame question.
There's no modeling. The UN hates Israel.
No modeling because the UN hates Israel. Is all of the analysis coming from the criticism.
Alright, it'll be the reverse order, so I'll start on the F. Then I'll go to the K. I'll just be flagging voters.
Case right now.
Yeah. Alright. You good? Alright.
You're voting negative for Rice TV for a couple reasons. One, they've been framed out of this round. I hate the point which they can see the framing analysis, anti-blackness in prior question, nice in their framework in the AMG, or at least if they do, they have conceded all the fiat bad arguments. It means that there's no money violate their impacts first. They look at the impacts that you look at the role about the best resist anti-black violence. Also to challenge anti-blackness. Only alternative can do that. We have made it nights of how exactly their associations activity with land and also their inability to understand how Israel operates as they settle in colonial statements. They always produce the forms of violence that they in timing they can never resolve with the affirmative. But that also means they link back into the criticism, which shows that they are a bad form of violence. But going to the affirmative case property, you can see two which arguments of one, how China fills in because they do not care about Russia, but they also the second biggest trading partner with Israel. So they fill in for the gap the United States creates because you have no solvency of the app because if Israel's economy is doing fine, they do not establish a sovereign Palestinian state. Also, you can see the arguments that Netanyahu will backlash because the election's in 30 days and he needs to prove military and this to correct the disadvantage argument. So he extended means that he will probably result in more violence against Palestinians because he needs to expose his military aggressiveness. Then on the advantage one, you don't go for advantage one, but you can see our arguments. There's no modeling because the UN hates Israel. Whenever a proposition with the Security Council is brought to the Commission is completely rejected because the U.S. and Israel are not liked in terms of that interaction at the UN. They're going to go hard on this argument that somehow the U.S. That like the U.S. resulted in like economic sanctions, or it was like a labor sanctions. I think that argument doesn't matter because we're talking our analysis contextualized to Israel, Palestine, which is a much hotter issue for Israel than this argument on labor rights in Israel. This means you have no game on the advantage. Also, there's no modeling, there's no solvency for advantage because there's no reason why other countries or other actors would acknowledge Palestine as independent. This means you have no solvency for your advocacy. Also, no extension of there's no extension of your impacts. Meaning that you look to the negative impacts first and whether or not they actually reduce anti-black violence. 1 decay. You're going to go hard in the PMR for the fact that you are saving lives, that you are a policy action, but I would ask you to look hard and fast articulation. They do not solve their affirmative for the reasons cited above. They do also not solve for the affirmative because they are bad methodology, i.e. engaging in fiat already precludes and excludes individuals of color from access to levers of power. You don't engage with our fiat, bad argumenting. It's game over for your role of the ballot and your framework. Your only arguments that you can go for that your empirical examples with the Black Panther movement and the Young Lords arguments that the fact they were only successful at the point at which they worked outside the state when the state started infiltrating them, i.e. COINTELPRO, they lost all semblance of solvency because the state co-opted their movement. Are you not contesting the ability for us to operate outside of the state knowledge? It means that our ability to solve is predicated on the existence of being outside of fiat. You have not contested these claims, meaning that there's no reason why you would win the framing analysis. You're just behind on this question. Also, we have one reason why anti-blackness is the main explanation for Zionism. I mean, you don't get any access to your affirmative until you go through the framing of anti-blackness. Links? You only have one piece of offense versus the link term. We say this link term doesn't function because you do not solve the affirmative 1, but also 2 because you do not recognize the history of violence the United States commits. I hear only stop sharing with the United States. There's no reason why you actually get any solvency for this. Also, you can see the second link term, which is what we've collapsed, which means that the associated subjectivity with sovereignty and land access means that you recreate the logic of settler colonialism, which means Israel, the logic that Israel engages in will only be replicated by the affirmative. This replicates your impacts, but also is it links to our external offense that is anti-black violence and otherization. You've also conceived the root causing of how otherization happens, i.e. through settler colonialism. Means you filter all the impacts from the app and the neg through settler colonialism. Only the alternative can access it through resisting anti-black violence. On the alternative, they're only these offenses of permutation, but when they can see the links, means permutation is not net beneficial. Also, you're going to try to parse down to Karl Marx or Marxist feminists. Our argument is, one, we're not Karl Marx, don't give a shit about what Karl Marx said. The second argument is Marxist feminists were successful because they worked outside the state. Your example is only one instance of Marxist feminists, but they operate all...
Any responses to the argument like the vanguard feminist Marx movement was not brought up in the MO?
I have Sonia saying that your articulation of the state being inevitable in this vanguard stuff kills revolutionary potential because that undermines how we understand the Marxist feminists. Okay. Anyway, we control the examples around, so we're going to be winning at the point which our solvency is more subject to how we can resolve the affirmative. Also, there's a really good reason why the permutation does not function. The alternative can resolve the affirmative. You can see that all solves the app, so it's game over with the app. The app can't solve the app. Only all can solve the app.
The order is going to be the add in order of our solvency, and then it's going to be the add 1 and 2, and then it's going to be the negative K in order of the framework, the links, and then the alt and solvency.
What's the app and the neg?
Yeah. I guess I could have said it like that. It would just sound a lot cooler. Not to solve.
I just want to make sure I wasn't missing some piece of the order.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all good. I like simplicity.
Yeah, in my head, the order had changed through the blocks, so I was like, I better say it again, I guess. But that's wrong. Alright, is everyone good? Sweet.
The permutation is the only way to vote out of this round specifically because of the question of how we have to use the policy levers of power in order to engage with the Palestinian engagements who are not black people, which means that we functionally have to again power them in order to say that we're not going to be killing them off. The negative team is only a rejection of the affirmative team, which means there are no instance in which they can resolve the impacts of the affirmative on a matter of time frame. They do not win the time frame debate, which means they're able to win that 1.5 million people are going to be dying within the next year.
What? Sorry. Saying that the alt is only rejection is a new argument, also not true. But yeah, it's a new argument.
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, this is just an overview. I haven't even made the argument yet. But second of all, I'm literally just like explaining how the impacts of the app are able to weigh against the impacts of the neg on a matter of time frame. Yeah. Right.
We're doing it. We can stop back to the impacts of the app. We move forward. We can stop back to the impacts of the negative team, which necessitates the vote for the affirmative first because the question of how we can actually hunt down and we can stop back to the impacts of 1.5 million people dying within a year's time, which means that we functionally can stop back to this. There is no time frame which the negative team is able to stop back right in blackness and there's the square, which means we're functionally winning. That there is no way in which the negative team can stop back for these things. Also, the affirmative team, like sitting across that they say that Russia doesn't care about the Israelis right now. Argumentation. They talk about Russia doesn't care about Israel right now. There's no reason the affirmative is able to solve it. And because all our reasons why we are able to solve the same reason we were able to have labor work rights, specifically because of the way that sanctions were able to work. This means we are functionally able to already, specifically when it comes to the wars on analysis, we are winning the wars on analysis. They want to talk about wars law. We are able to slow back for Israel specifically because of the question of how sanctions from the United States are uniquely controlling the way that Israel politics are able to happen. This is also able to win reason why we're able to answer back the entirety of the Netanyahu argumentation and talking about backlash. Meaning Netanyahu is not going to be backlashing against us because of the question of how the heck he didn't do it before when we were specifically controlling their politics scenario, which means that we functionally have not simply say, but also we are controlling the $3 billion of aid that are going to the country every single year, which means we functionally have a terminal high hegemony specifically from the United States to Israel. We see there's no going to be not going to be any backlash, but also mean literal economic collapse for them if they're going to be backlashing, which means that they mean immediately bad for Israel. The perfection is we're winning the enigma scenario how the United States is able to control Israel, which means that we're not going to see any of these backlash arguments to talk about, but also we are 100% winning this all states in the cost of links on the data. 20 is the reason why we're functionally able to solve back for this, but also the reason why we are functionally trying our scenario specifically for the question of how the 1.5 million people are going to be dying this right now is ultimately means that we're functionally able to resolve the back of the question also why nuclear war is going to be happening in the region specifically when it comes to Saudi Arabia. Everybody's going to be happening to be killed because of nuclear war. That ultimately means that anti-blackness doesn't matter because we're all going to be dead. It doesn't matter in the end of the world because people are going to be dying off first for the people who are black in the first place, which means we functionally have to resolve the question of how our basic impacts are going to be outweighing the negative team, but also when they talk about methods, we are winning our method is uniquely because they are rejection of the way the policy is able to function. Their entire record is to talk about abandoning policy, but we're saying the policy is absolutely necessary to avoid the extinction of the world, which means you're going to be weighing that in the methods debate, but also the argumentation on industry. You're going to be sending cross links and internal links is the reason why you have to go for our agency because the question of how they talk about Zionism is the root cause of the violence against the black people in Palestine. That is right now. We are winning that Zionism is not a matter of anti-blackness, it's a question of religion. This is exactly the war that Caleb is able to read you, which is resolving the question of agency for black people in Palestine is right now is only solved by the affirmative team because the question is that they do not have agency because agency only comes from political engagement, which is we have to firstly recognize their agency in order to recognize that they are human beings. This is the internal scenario. We talk about reorientation to their humanity, which means we are functionally the entirety of the advantage to versus the link to the decay, but also means that we are functionally the only ones who are able to resolve in a real political sense. We can use a bad actor to do a good thing to resolve the way that these people don't have agency, which means we resolve the way that black people don't have agency in Palestine is right now. Sitting across the 97% of the water is unhealthy is right now is the reason why they do not have agency. It's ultimately causing their inevitable death in their next coming months, which means ultimately these people are going to be dying because of the lack of agency. We can grant that to them. It doesn't matter if the United States is a terrible actor. We are not hand-washing this. We are turning a bad actor to a good thing. We're forcing it to do a good thing. It's been doing the bad thing up to now. They haven't supported Palestine, which means we're reversal to all of this. What?
Also, if the UN hates Israel, that's probably a reason why they'd agree with the United States, which means modeling works.
Yeah, also if the UN hates Israel, that's also a reason why they would functionally agree with the United States because they're not really the UN.
I think this argument that UN modeling would flow the affirmative way is new and should have been presented in the MG.
I have the MG clearly extending the links and internal links that because the United States has control of the UN means we can model the UN. Like, I just have that clearly extended through, but it's panel.
Because we're able to model it specifically, because we're able to control 30% of the peacekeepers, which is the specific word that Keelan extends for you, means that we are functionally able to control the one modeling is able to recognize agency, which means we're actually able to clean out the way that anti-blackness is able to perpetuate in the international sphere, which means the affirmative team has better solvency for anti-blackness in the international sphere than the negative team because it's a question of how the alternatives only able to operate within this realm, but we are specifically able to operate within in the realm of all the international politics, which means we are actually entirely true to the negative team argument, but also means turn.